Early 1945. The gray waters off Japan's coast lay silent beneath a sky filled with tension. An American F-4U Corsair, one of the deadliest naval fighters ever built, had been forced down after engine failure. The pilot ejected, leaving his aircraft to crash into the cold Pacific. Within hours, Japanese patrol boats surrounded the floating wreckage. What they retrieved was more than a downed enemy plane. It was a window into the technological soul of the United States. For nearly 3 relentless years, Japanese pilots had faced the Corsair across the Pacific, the Solomons, Rabaul, the Philippines, and now, the homeland itself. They had come to respect its thunderous power, its unbreakable structure, and the terrifying sound of its diving attack. But never before had they captured one intact. For Japan's aviation engineers, this recovery marked a turning point, a rare chance to dissect the enemy's most advanced fighter, and perhaps to understand why their own designs were falling behind. The F-4U Corsair was not just another American aircraft. It was the product of an industrial revolution in motion. Designed in 1938 by Chance Vought to meet the U.S. Navy's impossible specifications, it embodied the full force of American engineering. The Navy demanded a single-engine fighter that could surpass 400 miles per hour in level flight, a radical requirement at a time when most aircraft barely touched 350. The result was a design unlike anything seen before. A plane built around one of the largest engines ever fitted to a fighter, the Pratt & Whitney R-2800 Double Wasp, producing 2,000 horsepower. But such immense power brought a problem. The massive propeller needed to convert that energy into thrust measured over 13 feet across, too large for conventional designs. The solution became one of aviation's most iconic silhouettes, the inverted gull wing. The downward-angled wings gave the propeller clearance while keeping the landing gear short and strong enough for carrier landings. It wasn't just practical, it was a work of aerodynamic genius. The first prototype, XF-4U-1, took to the skies in May 1940, and within months broke records, becoming the first single-engine American fighter to exceed 400 miles per hour. By the time it entered full service in 1942, the Corsair had already begun reshaping naval air combat. It combined speed, range, and firepower in perfect harmony, a balance Japan's aircraft industry struggled to achieve. Yet, its combat debut was far from glorious. On February 14, 1943, the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre, Corsairs joined American bombers and fighters in an attack over Bougainville. 9 aircraft were lost in a disastrous engagement, including several Corsairs, while the Japanese suffered only 1 loss. The defeat was humiliating. It proved that superior machines alone could not win wars. Strategy, discipline, and adaptation mattered just as much. American pilots learned quickly. They developed boom and zoom tactics, using the Corsair's speed and altitude advantage to dive, strike, and disengage before Japanese fighters could respond. Lieutenant Kenneth A. Walsh became the first Corsair ace by mastering these methods, eventually claiming 21 victories. From that moment on, the Corsair was no longer just a plane, it was a symbol of dominance. As the war progressed through 1943 and 1944, the Corsair gained an almost mythic reputation. Deployed from rugged island strips and aircraft carriers alike, it proved unstoppable. Its 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns unleashed devastating firepower, while its reinforced airframe could absorb punishment that would tear a Zero apart. Pilots called it the Ensign Eliminator for its ferocious power, but to Marines on the ground, it was something else entirely, a guardian angel. By mid-1944, the Corsair had evolved from a fighter to a multi-role powerhouse. It carried bombs, rockets, and napalm canisters, turning it into a lethal close-air support platform. During the battle for Okinawa, Corsairs flew thousands of missions, their presence so vital that infantrymen nicknamed them the Angels of Okinawa. But what Japanese forces saw in battle only hinted at the Corsair's true brilliance. The captured aircraft, salvaged from the Pacific in early 1945, was transported to the Yokosuka Naval Air Technical Arsenal, the heart of Japan's aviation intelligence. It was here that engineers would begin an exhaustive examination, measuring every rivet, studying every curve, and documenting every secret hidden within its metallic frame. For the Japanese, this was more than analysis, it was revelation. As they began to disassemble the Corsair piece by piece, they realized they were not merely studying an airplane. They were confronting the embodiment of industrial power, precision manufacturing, and scientific mastery far beyond anything Japan could produce in the closing months of the war. In the months ahead, this single aircraft would teach them lessons that would outlast the war itself. Lessons about design, endurance, and the sheer force of American engineering that would ultimately redefine Japan's technological future. At the Yokosuka Naval Air Technical Arsenal, the captured F-4U Corsair stood like a relic from another world. The aircraft, scarred by salt water but still largely intact, was carefully hoisted onto the examination platform. Japan's finest aviation engineers, men who had designed the Zero and countless other aircraft, now surrounded their enemy's creation in silent awe. They had studied fragments of Allied planes before, twisted wrecks, burned fuselages, but never had they possessed a complete, operational specimen of a frontline American fighter. The initial inspection began with meticulous precision. Every angle, every rivet, every control cable was photographed and measured. The inverted gull wing immediately drew attention. Its complex geometry, the engineers realized, demanded manufacturing accuracy far beyond what their factories could reliably produce in 1945. The precision tooling required for such compound curves simply did not exist in Japan's war-torn industry. Yet, the Corsair's structure was not wasteful. It was purposeful, efficient, and remarkably well-balanced between strength and aerodynamics. Even more surprising was the discovery that portions of the Corsair's wings and control surfaces were covered in fabric rather than metal. At first, Japanese examiners were puzzled. Why would a technologically advanced fighter use such an outdated technique? But their confusion turned to admiration when the logic became clear. The use of treated fabric reduced weight in low-stress areas, conserving valuable aluminum for critical load-bearing components. It was a calculated engineering choice, a reflection of mature design philosophy where performance and efficiency coexisted in perfect balance. As disassembly progressed, the engineers reached the Corsair's internal skeleton. What they found left them speechless. The primary wing spar, the backbone of the aircraft, was a single massive aluminum forging, precise, strong, and seamless. Japan's factories, limited by material shortages and less advanced metallurgy, had long relied on assembling smaller pieces into composite structures. This single American forging represented an industrial capacity that Japan simply could not match. Each internal rib and joint exhibited consistency measured to thousandths of an inch. No rough edges, no misalignments. Every component was a product of exacting quality control. Then came the heart of the beast, the Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine. It was an engineering masterpiece, 18 cylinders in 2 perfect rows, generating over 2,000 horsepower. The Japanese engineers had seen this engine before, but never so intact. When dismantled, it revealed machining precision that bordered on the extraordinary. Cylinder walls polished to mirror finish, piston tolerances measured by micrometers, and a supercharger system of breathtaking complexity, all achieved through manufacturing discipline and metallurgical expertise that Japan could only envy. Even the smallest details astonished them. The propeller assembly, a Hamilton standard hydromatic, featured variable pitch blades controlled by an advanced hydraulic governor, allowing maximum thrust at every altitude. The cockpit instruments, wiring, and hydraulic systems were meticulously organized, built for efficiency and reliability under the most extreme conditions. The fuel tanks were self-sealing, their layered rubber compounds swelling upon impact to prevent leakage, technology that Japan's aircraft still lacked. It became clear that the Corsair was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of industrial supremacy. Every nut, bolt, and bracket testified to a nation whose factories functioned with mathematical precision and whose workers were guided by systems of quality assurance nearly absent in wartime Japan. The engineers at Yokosuka documented their findings in exhaustive technical reports, page after page of sketches, measurements, and observations that quietly admitted what many already feared. Japan's technological gap was no longer bridgeable. By mid-1945, While Japan's skies burned under B-29 bombardments, its engineers examined this single corsair not as a tool for victory, but as a mirror reflecting the limits of their own capabilities. Aluminum quality had degraded. Skilled labor had been drafted into combat. Factories worked in ruins under constant threat of air raids. Against this backdrop, the corsair's immaculate construction felt almost alien, evidence of an industrial system untouched by desperation. When the war finally ended, American occupation forces arrived at Yokosuka and discovered the remnants of these studies. Dozens of captured Allied aircraft lay scattered around the facility, alongside thousands of technical notes detailing Japan's efforts to understand them. Among these papers were the complete reports on the F-4U Corsair, an extraordinary document chronicling Japan's final attempt to comprehend American aviation mastery. The Corsair itself was eventually scrapped, its materials recycled in the chaos of post-war recovery. But its influence endured. In the years following Japan's surrender, many of the same engineers who had examined that downed fighter worked alongside American advisors during Reconstruction. What they had seen in 1945, the meticulous craftsmanship, the focus on precision, the culture of continuous improvement, became the foundation of Japan's post-war industrial renaissance. The very lessons learned from the Corsair helped inspire the philosophies that would later define Japan's manufacturing identity: precision engineering, reliability, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Decades later, these principles would power Japan's rise as a global leader in technology and industry. For America, the F-4U Corsair stood as a testament to what industrial power could achieve when guided by innovation and purpose. Its kill ratio of 11-1 against Japanese aircraft during World War II remains unmatched, a reflection not only of superior machinery, but of an entire system built upon training, resources, and technological foresight. For Japan, the captured Corsair was not merely an artifact of defeat, it was a teacher, a silent testament that courage and skill, though vital, could not overcome the magnitude of industrial and scientific imbalance. It marked the end of one era and the quiet beginning of another. The Corsair's wreckage may have vanished, but the lessons it carried reshaped nations. In its aluminum skin, its forged spars, and its roaring engine lay the blueprint for modern Japan's rebirth, a reminder that even in loss, knowledge endures.